Today we have an awesome opportunity to get really a first peek at the clean energy curriculum modules for those of us who have been involved in the first cohort of clean energy districts. We're excited for this opportunity. They have been built around the four components of the clean energy ICP, so net zero grid and offshore wind and clean transportation and high performance buildings. So a nice opportunity to help students understand those four areas that have been curated based on workforce development and where the Commonwealth growth is going to occur in terms of job opportunities in the future. We'll also have an opportunity to unpack with colleagues and discuss how these will be integrated into your course progression for your pathway, and really to talk about how through these modules we're able to build a level of coherence in and among programs while still allowing for a lot of autonomy for districts to leverage their local and regional clean energy opportunities. So to share this work with us is the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center representatives, and they have introduced themselves already and told us their Super Bowl dietary preferences. So Alex, I definitely want your wings recipe. But Janelle Granum is the program director and of workforce development, and she is joined today by Alex Schwartz, the senior program manager of student and young adult workforce development. Before I turn the slides over to them, I just want to lay a little groundwork and say the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center is a state economic development agency, and they're dedicated to accelerating work in the Commonwealth around this clean energy sector. And they're really interested in delivering statewide environmental benefits and long-term economic growth for the people of Massachusetts. So we're excited. I'm going to stop sharing and allow them to share their slides. We're excited about being kind of the first to preview these curriculum modules. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Janelle and Alex. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Meredith. So yeah, let me get these slides going here so we can take a look at those. As Meredith mentioned, we are going to be kind of taking a look at the new clean energy awareness curriculum that Mass CAC has been working on for a while now. So everybody can see those slides. I'll get the actual presentation going, but good view. Okay, great. So yeah, we already did introductions, so I'll skip over that. Just kind of a brief overview of what we're planning on discussing this afternoon. So we'll do just a real quick overview of what Mass CAC is, and what some of the work we do is, and what resources we have available for folks as they go down this pathway. I'm going to do a kind of big picture overview of the curriculum, kind of some of the ideas behind its design, what the actual curriculum looks like, what's included in each lesson, and things like that. We will break into a couple breakout rooms where we'll have a chance to actually do a little bit more of a deep dive on some particular lesson materials, have some discussions around how you potentially see those being embedded into the work you're doing. And then we'll, towards the end, start wrapping it up with some logistical stuff just around, how to access the curriculum, what other resources are available for you as part of the curriculum, and then potential next steps for other things you might want to explore as you're going down these paths. We will have Q&A towards the end. I left some time for questions at the end, but I will also say, I think, anytime anybody has a question in the moment often is a better time to ask it. So feel free as we go, to use raise hand or unmute if you want to shout out a question. So we make sure we don't lose out on that time at the end if things run a little bit over. If I'm in the middle of presenting and I'm not noticing hands, feel free to interrupt me to let me know as well. So to kick things off with Mass CAC overview, I'll pass things over to Janelle to talk a little bit about Mass CAC at large.
Hi, good afternoon. Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, as you've heard, is a quasi-state organization. We basically focus on climate tech and innovation, accelerating decarbonization, large-scale deployment of things such as offshore wind, and for our purposes, clean energy and climate workforce development and career awareness, which is not as it's not in the big bold, but it is part of what we're doing, making sure that students, young adults, and the next workforce know that there are jobs that are in all these parts of Massachusetts, and that it's growing fairly large as a sector, and is in part of all the things that are happening. One of the things I like to tell people is I often think of clean energy as what information technology was in 1978, where people people kind of were like, that's cute, but they didn't realize like this is coming and it's everywhere. It's going to be underneath everything. There's a reason someone's going to have to figure out what to do if there's snowstorms in Louisiana moving forward, right? So it is coming, and it's coming for all of us. Next slide. For our workforce development sector, we really look at what the current and future workforce needs. We think about how are we expanding and diversifying the workforce, who doesn't know about us, so that they can learn about us and therefore be a part of us. Thinking about that career awareness part, just really trying to think about what would it take for someone to be trained and then be able to use that training to get into and continue to have a job. I think often, at least with the folk we are training with young adults, they can get a job. People will take a chance on them, but that idea of, well, how do we make sure that they have the skills they need to keep a job if they run into any kind of obstacle, that they don't get that thing where it's like, well, not sure how to solve this, not going to communicate about this, I'm just going to not show up anymore. Just really making sure that they have those skills. For us in the workforce development, we really look at 3 priority areas: student and young adults, which Alex and I represent, new entrants and incumbent workers, and then we're looking at climate critical businesses. We are focusing on kind of the MWBEs and other disadvantaged businesses, kind of how do you help small businesses, because it's easier for people to see themselves in business. And a lot of our young people, they're like, well, what can I do? How can I be an entrepreneur here? And if they don't think they can, then they're not going to try it. So we do a lot of direct programming. Some of the things we look at, we do a lot of looking at funding, a lot of grant making, which we'll speak a little bit about later. And then really thinking about, well, who isn't part of what we're doing and how should we be coordinating with them and make sure that we're not duplicating efforts to really make a larger impact. And so that's a little bit about Mass CEC, and I will turn it back over to Alex.
Awesome. Thanks, Janelle. So what we're going to focus on today is the new clean energy awareness curriculum that is available now. It's in a state of soft launch, so I'll talk about why that is over the next few slides, and then what the plans are in the future for it. But it is out there, is something you can start using as of now, and exploring as much as you'd like. This curriculum was designed in partnership with leading curriculum developers, experienced educators across the Commonwealth, and is really focused on grades 9 through 12, and was rooted in the state standards, the Common Core standards, as well as the career training standards as well. These right here are kind of the 4 concepts, the core concepts to the design of the curriculum. So it is meant to be accessible and customizable. So in terms of just accessing the curriculum, there is just a website for you to go to with all the resources that are there. And the curriculum is meant to be modular so that you can pick and choose individual lessons that apply most to your schools. You can use individual resources, whatever feels the most applicable. And you can also customize the materials as much as you like. So the slides, the worksheets, all of that are all available both as PDF and, Word docs and all of that too. It's also meant to be easy to implement. So, the idea is that you will be able to deliver these lessons within a single classroom period and with minimal prep. So one of the things we'll look at in a moment is the teacher guides that come with these, which give a little bit of an outline for some prep work to do. But as a former teacher myself, I know that having something there that you can just immediately dive into is often really helpful. And so they're designed for that minimal prep. They are learner-centered, so they are designed to address barriers and serve EJ communities and underrepresented populations, which I think you'll see as you go through the materials. They are heavily Massachusetts focused, which I think is one of the really cool things about the curriculum. As you go through the slide decks, the kind of case studies that are there, the worksheets, and in particular the videos that are included as part of the curriculum, everything is rooted in our local communities. So you'll see Massachusetts, schools, organizations, projects, and they will be all through the lens of young workers in the clean energy sector throughout the state. I was speaking recently with folks who had been working on the videos, and one of the things they really highlighted was that they were pushing in every video to be featuring somebody that was under the age of 30, who was more recent into those careers. And it's definitely true as you walk through those videos. And then finally, they are intended to showcase diversity. So both diversity in the workers that they are showing and the backgrounds of those workers and the folks that you're seeing in the videos and the materials, but also in the variety of available careers. I think the focus heavily here is on career awareness. And so being able to see the vast majority of careers that are available for folks within the clean energy sector that they may not have even considered is really a heavy focus on, especially the second half of the curriculum. These are just the kind of general course learning objectives. So as you go through the lessons, each individual lesson has their own learning objectives as well. But these are kind of the overarching course learning objectives. So you'll see here, students are able to explain the consequences of climate change and identify solutions to address climate change, describe how climate critical careers support each other and the success of the transition to clean energy, and then also compare and contrast climate critical careers of interest and discuss their feelings and perspectives related to a career in clean energy. These learning objectives then feed into basically how the entire curriculum is structured. So there are 18 modular lessons, so 18 50-minute lessons that are available right now as part of the curriculum. They are broken into kind of 3 areas that align well with those learning objectives. So we have some foundational lessons, which are really just focused on exposing students to the concept of climate change, why it's happening, and how we can combat it, as well as some of the solutions that are currently out there for addressing these issues. We then move into lessons specific to the technologies that are part of this work. So students will get exposed to things like high performance buildings, passive houses, weatherization, things like that. Solar, geothermal, offshore wind, all of the technologies that they may want to explore as part of these future careers. And then the last 8 or so lessons are all focused on highlighting specific careers within the industry. So each of those lessons will, in the video, showcase an individual who is working in that particular field, talk a little bit about the work that they're doing, how they got to that point. And the lessons are all structured around kind of a little bit more of a deeper dive into exploring those individual careers. There's 2 lessons here as well that are highlighted a little bit different, which I'm going to talk a little bit more on the next slide, that are really focused on some kind of self-reflection on the student's part. But again, all of these are designed to be completely modular. So, folks may choose to do all 18 of the lessons if that applies to you, or you may pick and choose based on, your communities and what you think will be the most relevant to your curriculum. So as I mentioned, lesson 10 and lesson 18 are slightly different in terms of the way that they're set up. So lesson 10 is meant to kind of take us from the technologies into the careers, by transitioning us and focusing on the different type of solutions and how those impact the careers and how they make those careers possible. It starts the student to think a little bit about themselves, what they're interested in, what they could potentially see themselves doing as far as the careers that are there. Talks about the need for those careers, and then gets into the kind of overview of some of the careers that they're going to look at in the following lessons. And then the final lesson, which is lesson 18, is focused on more of a reflection. So it asks the students to kind of look back, think about the careers that they've been exposed to so far, and start thinking about their future and what might interest and excite them around those careers. All right. So I saw there's just a question about the slides being shared, and it's a great transition to this one because this slide here is focused on the 4 primary materials that are included with each lesson. And each of these actually links to an individual material. So if you are looking at these slides later and you want to take a look at the teacher manual for this particular lesson that I'm using, lesson 3, those are all linked here as well. So slides will be available and you'll be able to kind of see those materials quickly and easily here. So essentially there's 4 primary resources with each lesson. So there is a teacher manual, which will provide that necessary prep. It goes through everything, from as basic as just, watching the videos and looking through the slides that you're about to present to providing additional resources for further learning. So, if you have extra time and you want to spend a little bit more time learning about the technology that you're going to be discussing, it has additional resources there. Walkthroughs for the actual direct instruction with the materials that'll be presented to students. Discussion guidance, some sample questions that are kind of common from students and how to approach them. There's areas for differentiation and adaptation for different students and different learners, and then extension materials as well. Extensions is obviously an area that I think we would love to build out more too, but for right now, there's quite a lot there around ways that you can extend the material that you have. Each of the lessons also has a slide deck. So the deck will, kind of act as that walkthrough for the lesson. It includes things like an opening activity, specific data and multimedia related to the topic, guided discussion questions, group activities, and then an exit ticket at the end to wrap up that lesson as well. Each lesson also has worksheets, which have direct relation to the presentation. So often the questions and activities that are in those presentations are then reflected on the worksheets for students to actively be working on. And then the last thing that's included with each of those lessons is a companion video, which personally I think is really kind of the highlight of these lessons. And we'll get a chance to take a look at a few of them in a minute. But these are videos that, again, are really focused on our individual communities and a really great deep dive into the technologies and the careers that they are highlighting. Great. So when we get into our breakout sessions, we'll have a chance to look a little bit more deeply at each of these materials. For right now, I just kind of wanted to give you a bit of an overview. So again, teacher manual, this is just a screenshot of one of the teacher manuals here. This particular manual, I think, is 9 pages. So there's a lot more material there for folks to explore. But this will just give you an idea of what that looks like. We also have our worksheets. This one is a selection from lesson 3, which asks students to do an energy audit of their school. So this has some guiding questions, and there's a little bit more here as well afterwards that focuses on making suggestions for improvements around energy use. So this will have them, walking around and basically looking at what the school is doing and where things may be falling short and where they could be potentially improved. And then here is just a quick preview of what the slide decks typically look like. I'm not going to walk through an entire slide deck. They're pretty long, and they're meant to be that kind of 50-minute period. But I pulled some. There's about half of one of the slide decks here, just so you could get an idea of what it looks like. So again, always rooted in our local communities. This is meant kind of as an opening, think piece about how schools around the state may be using technologies to improve their energy usage. Get into things like important vocabulary and making sure the students are set up to understand the lesson as best as possible. Again, we have the kind of individual learning goals for each lesson. And then we get into our videos, which I'm going to pause for one moment. I realize I made the mistake that I specifically called out not to make when I shared my screen, which is I did not share my sound. So I'm going to quickly unshare and reshare just so that I have that sound there. So give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Oops, sorry. My mistake. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So getting back in, can everybody see that again? Yes, good. Okay.
The city of Fitchburg has a number of
Hearing
schools
that okay?
that are already outfitted with solar arrays. Right here at Fitchburg High School, we're in the process of building large solar canopies, and we're really excited about what this is going to bring to the school.
Currently at Fitchburg High, we're covering solar canopies for 2 parking lots, and once the system is turned on, we'll be actively feeding into the electrical infrastructure of the school and offsetting some of the energy that it typically consumes. The designs on the solar canopy were all designed by my team.
My name is Bobby Bowman. I'm a senior project manager. I work with Deep in the electrical engineering team. We build a lot of projects with schools, and schools, like many other commercial buildings, use a lot of energy. So our goal is to make sure that those projects maintain their full capacity throughout their lifetime.
The basic components are solar panels that go up on the roof of this solar canopy. Then they feed into an inverter, which is a device that converts the DC that's coming out of the solar panels into AC, the electricity that we get all in our houses and schools. So what we're looking at here at the base of the canopy, there's a rebar cage that goes into the ground, and there's concrete that's poured around it. There's a ground wire that basically grounds for any lightning strikes. If you touch the canopy itself, you're never going to be electrocuted. There are 10 screws, all get bolted on, and then you got steel purlins on which the modules are mounted. This is a standard Y-frame. It's 2 to 5 degree tilt on the canopy that helps with the water management and also tilts the canopies towards the south, where the most optimal exposure to the sun is. Projects like this involve a lot of disciplines working together. There's this constant back and forth between the design team and the construction team where we're learning from each other.
There's a whole team of design engineers. There's geotechnical, structural, there's electrical, there's trenching, excavation for foundations, steel workers, landscapers. There's the service technicians that help make sure it operates properly. It really does take a team.
Since I got out of the military.
All right, I will pause that there. There are the videos are all 3 to 5 minutes long. We don't need to watch the entire thing right now. But each one, as you can see, really dives into a lot of the technologies that we're focusing on. And as we get into the breakout sessions, you'll be able to see a little bit more about those career specific ones, which really highlight one person and their experience there too. So I'll keep moving on here. If there's, again, any questions, feel free to throw them out at any time. So in terms of more slides with the actual lesson, we have some kind of wrap up questions from the video. We get into some specific data pulled from for the electricity grid here in Massachusetts for students to look at. We have some of the clean energy technologies that are addressing some of those issues here. And again, this is really just kind of about half of the presentation here. I just wanted to give you a little bit of exposure as to what these looked like. And this is the group activity that relates back to that student worksheet we saw a few minutes ago. So I'm going to pause there because I want to make sure we have enough time for our breakout sessions and the wrap up that we're going to do here as well.
But if anyone is willing to share one aspect of the curriculum they're excited to embed, or even one challenge that looking at this you're anticipating, I think we can get 2 people to share and then we can move on in order to make sure that we hit that timing. That would be great.
So I'll jump in quickly. The concept of a geothermal network is new to me, and I think will be interesting to our students. We have one building that I know of in Boston, the BU Data Science Center, that has geothermal wells. So an individual building we have access to, but even the concept of a place where there is space and or soil type that can have a geothermal network is something that I think will be new to our students and be really interesting. So thank you very much for presenting.
Thank you for sharing. Can I have one more person who is willing to share around this debrief?
Sure, I'll pitch in that I was concerned about trying to get the students actively involved, getting their hands a little dirty or wet or something. And you know, in my area, there are a number of places that we could go for a field trip to see this stuff in action. That would be a great resource for more broadly if we could create like a listing of demonstration buildings that are education centers as well. We have the Hitchcock Center for the Environment here, which is a sort of living experiment. So it'd be great if there was a resource that shared those sorts of resources for the programs that are trying to do this.
Thank you. So I'm gonna move on for the interest of time around access as we consider some of your feedback and thinking about how we'll get it out to you. So this curriculum lives like clean energy education. And this is where you can find some of these resources. There is an interactive career pathway tool as you're looking into career navigation. And then I will turn it back over to Alex.
Yeah, so just some kind of next steps to wrap up in our last minute here. So as I mentioned before, the curriculum is currently in kind of a soft launch state. Essentially what that means is that most of the material is there. I think there's about 4 videos that are in the final editing process and are going to be going on to the site in the next week or two. So as you're looking through, after this, you may find that there's a couple lessons there that don't have videos included, but they will shortly. And we're looking at a hard launch of the curriculum for kind of the end of March, early April. In tandem with that, we're also looking to host a launch event for students and educators. One of the studios that worked on the videos has a really lovely space where we will potentially be holding a launch event to kind of kick off this curriculum and celebrate the start of it and provide some experience for students to kind of get their hands into the curriculum in an exciting way at one of those events. So look out for information about that. We also, as we've kind of alluded to, we want to continue to gather feedback as much as possible here. So as folks start to dig into this curriculum, if you are implementing any of it in your schools, or even if you're just kind of looking through it, if you have feedback, we're going to come up with a formal, feedback strategy so that you can share that easily. But in the meantime, feel free to reach out and share any feedback with us as well. And then one of the other things we are looking at, and I'd love to discuss with folks in the future, is just potential teacher training. So right now we have those teacher guides, but we'd love to kind of see what would be desired in terms of, formal teacher training around this curriculum and what would be useful for folks into getting this started. So that's another thing I'd love to discuss with folks in the future. And I'm sure I'll chat with some of you around that as you get started.
And I'll just say, like, some of the things that people had feedback out around our own group in terms of our additional resources. One, Alex, reach out to Alex if you have questions or you're looking for things. But we do work with some of the employers in this field, so you can always look out for us for collaborations. The Work-Based Learning Alliance project is coming, and that will also be something that you will look for. We also do student and young adult equity RFP grant writing. So maybe you're thinking of something that doesn't quite fit into the ICP, but you're really interested in exploring, such as a particular kind of training in your field, and that's coming soon. And then our wind turbine testing center, there are field trips. So if you reach out to that email, you can go and take a tour of that. And, one of the things I tell people is you want to ask, will there be wind turbines that day? If they are, they'll try to turn them on for your students.